Good evening, friends. My name is Dave Wright, and I am one of the clergy and similar folk who hang around Emmanuel Pres, and am grateful to be back in the rotation tonight for this week's Wednesday night reflection. In my day job, which is often an evening job and a weekend job, and sometimes a while I'm sleeping job, I'm also the university chaplain at the University of Puget Sound, just down the street from our church. If you're part of the Emmanuel community regularly, it's great to be with you in this strange, surreal way as we continue our attempts to stay safe and take care of one another and express the love of the sacred to our community by taking our time before coming back together in person. I'm grateful to Johnny Everly, Pastor Tad, and others who are making this possible, uh, and for the invitation to be part of this series. I want to begin tonight with a very basic promise to you. I am not going to sing. I promise. That will not happen. But I want to talk about music. I'm not going to play anything either. I could do better at that than singing. I've always found a lot of meaning in music, from my first live concerts in high school with some embarrassing hair metal bands back in the day, through today. Secular and, admittedly for me, less often sacred music has moved me to feel more connected with the sacred, to feel even briefly in those moments caught up in the divine rhythms of the universe, something bigger than myself. In some ways, it was the way that certain so-called secular artists impacted my faith that I began to be at home with what I ultimately encountered in graduate school and beyond as Celtic or process or other progressive theologies. Echoes of God found in all places, including music, included, as we know at Emmanuel, in the blues, in poetry, not just in one book or one church or one faith or one way of being. I know that for many of us, music is a critical part of our spiritual lives. In the Emmanuel community, we have incredible performers. We have folks like me who may not like to sing along, may sing along, but may not ever want to solo. We have some folks that just find themselves moved by the sound. For some of us, it's the lyrics. For others, the harmony. Some the volume. Some the voice that you lift yourself. The instrument that you play with all your heart. And I know, I've got some in my family, that there are those for whom music just isn't the spiritual connection. And if you're still watching at this point, I'm grateful that you're willing to at least listen to me talk about it for a few minutes. I won't make you sing either, I promise. I want to center this reflection, though, on one particular song, an anthem has become deeply important to me over the last 14 years, and that has been resonant in my head the last few weeks. It's a song that I've woven into sermons before at Emmanuel and many other churches. It is one of those stories that I take on the road with me when the time is right. It's a song that I often use during Black History Month or at celebrations of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But the rise of the civil rights movement of 2020 has drawn it forward for me and reminded me that this song and so many other incredible gifts of theology and activism and belief and music are not just for tokenizing seasons when the calendar says it's the time to pull them out of the hymnal and sing them. It's not only for 1 or 2 days out of the year that we should think about this song or the thousands of consonant songs, stories, poems, sermons, teachers, all the things that come into our lives and into this world through the power, the wisdom, and the skill of Black artists, composers, authors, theologians, and more. The song is Lift Every Voice and Sing, also known as the Black National Anthem. I encountered it back in grad school in a Black Church Studies course, but it didn't really sit with me. It didn't stick with me until I experienced singing it in community during my first year as the chaplain at Puget Sound, and then in all kinds of contexts since. I've seen and been able to participate in this being performed by a live blues band. I've seen Beyonce sing part of it on a national show at Coachella. I heard the words drawn up in the benediction given at President Obama's first inauguration ceremony. I could go on. But before going on, it's always important to me to share a bit of the story of a hymn or a song if you're going to talk about it. And I won't do that as much as tonight as when I preach on this particular song. But, and this should come as no surprise to our congregation and to a lot of folks who know me or know others in leadership around the church or progressive faith, the story matters. The story is the thing. The song was created by two brothers, James Weldon Johnson, who did the lyrics, initially a poem, and his little brother John Rosamond Johnson. It was written in 1899 in an era when the Reconstruction was in the past. The hope and the energy that came out of the Emancipation Proclamation and the years it took for slaves to actually be freed, that era was in the rearview mirror. Jim Crow was on the rise. Lynchings and violence against black folk in the South and in the North was continuing to build and build and build. In that space, the brothers birthed this song to offer faith, hope, liberation, and a reminder, a call to remember, a call to know the story and to dream what it might become. Hope, liberation, resistance for and within the black community. It was first performed, or maybe better yet, proclaimed, by a choir of 500 black youth from the school where James was the principal. From there, the song has a storied experience. I've already shared some of the examples, and there's great articles on the interwebs that you can Google yourself if you want to. I encourage you to go look into it. There's a lot of good stuff out there. But rather than tell more stories, I want to just read, as a poem, the lyrics. I will say, before diving in, that were this a different context, I would feel the need to stand for this. And if you're ever in a space where you are hearing it sung or singing along with it, it is traditional in the singing to stand as it is such a powerful and central song. It is called the Black National Anthem and has been from the 1920s, I believe. But because of the camera, I am at respect as best I can in this context. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod. Felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lift every voice and sing. By James Weldon Johnson and John Rosamond Johnson, 1899. These words in various patterns have been rattling around in my head for years, but never so strongly as in these last few weeks. The song story, coming out of a time when lethal white violence against black lives was rising steeply, calls to us that the faithful work of seeking justice is not a new thing, nor is the calamitous and hateful harm done for generations upon generations to black people by those who look a lot like me. harm done by the systems and resources that benefit me, harm done by the ways that generations of segregation and poverty and redlining and educational inequity and pay inequity and all of these things, most visibly seen perhaps through the brutality of officers kneeling on necks and bullets shot into an apartment one night. Wrong apartment. The harm is the history that we live with. And what we have seen, for me, in some of white America, has been another step, another remembering, another turning back to see and name the wrongness of the ways in which many people of color, and especially Black Americans, about whom we're talking right now, and Black people in America, the way that that harm is too often the daily life, and not just the violence that we see on the TV right now, but all those things that I listed, the emotional, the financial, the relational, the spiritual. For me, it's feeling a little bit like Lent, not in the fasting and repenting way, but in the self-examination, the call of that season that we passed sometime back in this pandemic, that season in which we turn to ourselves and try to seek out where it is that we need to turn, what we need to learn, how we need to live differently or live more fully, live with hope, live with liberation. Now, repenting may turn out to be, and is for many of us, a part of that. But for all of us, we need to be able to dig into the ways that we experience harm. And for those of us that are white, speaking to myself and for myself here, we need to dig into the ways that we have intentionally or unintentionally participated in harm to our Black siblings. Now, it's hard for me to not digress at this point off into an examination of white privilege, dig into critical race theory, hold forth, as I have in class a couple of times, on Black and womanist theologies. But as important as those things are, going intellectual is one way that I can avoid the heavier, harder issues. I've been given the gift of being able to engage those conversations as part of my daily life and work. And you all know, who know me, that that's something that's critical for my work and what I care about. But at this point, instead of going into that more intellectual discursion, I want to invite you and invite us to wrap this up. I invite you to go and listen to some music, maybe right now, maybe later, but I hope you'll take me up on it. Specifically, I want to invite you to hear a version of this song that we're talking about, that is in a voice and in a style and in an intentionality that is not mine to give. I can read it as a poem, I can honor it, I can find meaning in it that I've learned through folks who've taught me. But this year, on Juneteenth, which now all of us know, and I won't derail there either, Google worked with a number of artists to create one of their doodles, their little graphics and sometimes sounds that go with the spelling of Google across the screen, and centered that with activist and actor LeVar Burton. He collaborates with musicians to offer about a 90-second piece of Lift Every Voice and Sing as spoken word, along with some incredible music and some stunning visuals. There's a lot there, and if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be inviting people to go Google something, and not only that, look at a Google product as part of a spiritual reflection, I would have been confused, and I can do confused well. But take a listen to that. It took a little bit to find, but it's on YouTube, is where they've stored it at. Spend some time with the images, the lyrics, and your spirit, your heart, whatever that sense of the sacred world is that weaves within you. Some questions to consider on your own time. This is not a one-time, one-night thing. Why does this song matter? How does it impact you? What resonates with your faith? What's challenging to your faith? the crux of it. What does the Black National Anthem sing to you in the particular and complex and wonderful web that you are? Your race, gender, sexuality, faith, and more. How does this song speak to you? What does it call you to? What does it challenge you to? What does it invite you to? I close by recognizing that this reflection, this invitation, this is not a done thing. It's critical that we take time for introspection and reflection, especially as we weave our faith into activism, into world, into lives, that great network of being in which we are part of so much, if we can only let ourselves attend to it. But I will say it has been good, and not just because we've all been so isolated, to see some of you from Emmanuel and other places at local marches, posting updates and action items online, sharing wisdom, challenging yourself, challenging me. That's the work that, for me, comes from this song and from the other points in which I have been drawn into the work as a white person to try to decolonize and deconstruct whiteness and challenge the places where liberation is not happening in our world. The journey of faith continues. The journey of Emmanuel as a congregation that often feels like a progressive, inclusive space, that continues too. We need to keep learning, both in our heads and hearts, but in our embodiment, how to not just be a place with progressive and inclusive values, but one that continues and deepens the good work we're already doing, to struggle to live with them and live into them. My own faith demands that I continue this journey in a way that seeks justice. Your path may be different, how you travel it may go in different ways, but I'm grateful to be connected to this community in this challenging, life-giving, complex time as we try to live into the dream of the sacred in our own lives, in our community, and in this world. Take care. Stay well. Listen to some music. Both lift your voice and sing, and some other stuff that feeds your soul. I look forward to seeing you around. Take care.